Every meaningful journey toward success begins with one decision: the decision to become responsible for your own growth. Many people believe leadership starts when others begin to follow them, but true leadership starts much earlier. It begins the moment you decide that your future will no longer depend on circumstances, luck, or someone else's approval. It begins when you choose to lead yourself, and the most powerful tool for leading yourself is self-study. Think about the difference between being taught and choosing to learn. When someone teaches you, they determine the pace, the direction, and often the limits of your learning. But when you study on your own, something changes. You become curious instead of simply compliant. You begin asking questions that matter to you. You explore ideas because you want to understand them, not because someone expects you to memorize them. That shift changes everything. It transforms learning from an obligation into a lifelong habit. The world rewards people who continue growing long after formal education ends. A diploma may open a door, but continuous learning determines how far you walk through it. The people who create lasting impact are rarely the ones who believe they already know enough. They are the ones who wake up every morning believing there is still something valuable to discover. They understand that every new lesson is another tool added to their ability to solve problems, serve others, and create opportunities. Self-study is also an act of personal responsibility. It is easy to blame a lack of success on poor circumstances, limited resources, or difficult people. It is much harder to look in the mirror and ask, "What do I need to learn to become better?" That question shifts your focus from what you cannot control to what you can. Instead of waiting for life to improve, you improve yourself. And as you improve yourself, your ability to influence your environment begins to grow. Imagine two people starting from the same place. They have similar talents, similar opportunities, and similar challenges. One spends every evening consuming entertainment without intention, allowing hours to disappear without gaining anything meaningful. The other spends just 30 minutes reading, reflecting, listening to educational content, or developing a new skill. On the first day, there is almost no visible difference between them. After a week, the difference is still small. After a month, it is noticeable. After a year, they think differently, communicate differently, and solve problems differently. After several years, people call one of them naturally successful, even though the real difference was built one small learning session at a time. That is the power of consistency. Great achievements rarely come from one extraordinary effort. They are usually the result of ordinary actions repeated with extraordinary commitment. Self-study follows this principle perfectly. Every page you read, every lesson you absorb, every thoughtful note you write is another brick in the foundation of the person you are becoming. Alone, each brick seems insignificant. Together, they build a life of strength, wisdom, and confidence. But self-study is not simply about gathering information. We live in a time when information is everywhere. You can access millions of books, articles, lectures, and courses with just a few clicks. Information has never been more available. Wisdom, however, remains rare. Wisdom is created when knowledge meets reflection and action. Reading a great idea is valuable, but asking yourself how that idea applies to your life is transformational. Learning becomes powerful only when it changes your decisions. That is why reflection is such an important part of self-study. At the end of each day, ask yourself simple but meaningful questions. What did I learn today? How did it challenge my thinking? What can I apply tomorrow? These questions turn passive learning into active growth. They force your mind to connect knowledge with experience, making lessons easier to remember and more likely to influence your behavior. Another important truth is that self-study develops confidence in a way that external praise never can. Confidence does not come from hearing people tell you that you are capable. Real confidence comes from knowing you have prepared yourself. When challenges appear, you remain calm because you have invested in your understanding. When opportunities arise, you are ready because you have been learning long before the opportunity arrived. Preparation removes fear because preparation creates certainty. Self-study also teaches humility. The more you learn, the more you realize how much there is still to discover. This realization is not discouraging, it is exciting. It keeps your mind open, it prevents arrogance. It allows you to listen carefully, ask better questions, and continue improving. Humility and curiosity work together. One reminds you that you do not know everything, while the other inspires you to keep searching. Perhaps the greatest gift of self-study is that it places your future back into your own hands. You may not control every event in your life. You may not control every opportunity or obstacle, but you always have the ability to improve your understanding. Every book you read, every meaningful conversation you have, every lesson you intentionally pursue is an investment that no one can take away from you. When you commit to studying every day, you are making a promise to your future self. You are saying, I refuse to stay where I am. I will continue growing, learning, and becoming better. That promise, honored day after day, becomes the foundation of personal leadership. Because before you can inspire others, influence teams, or create lasting success, you must first become the leader of your own mind. And that journey always begins with one simple habit: choosing to study, choosing to grow, and choosing to lead yourself every single day. Every day, whether you realize it or not, you are becoming someone. You are not standing still. Life is constantly shaping your thinking through the conversations you have, the content you consume, the people you spend time with, and the habits you repeat. The question is not whether you are changing. The real question is whether you are changing intentionally. That is why daily learning matters so much. It gives you the power to shape your own identity instead of allowing the world to shape it for you. Most people think identity is something they are born with. They believe their personality, abilities, and future are fixed. But identity is built, one decision at a time. Every book you read introduces you to a new perspective. Every lesson you study challenges an old belief. Every meaningful idea has the potential to change the way you think. And once your thinking changes, your actions begin to change. Eventually, those repeated actions become habits, and those habits become your character. Think of your mind as a garden. Every day, something is growing inside it. If you plant seeds of wisdom, discipline, courage, and curiosity, those qualities will eventually become part of who you are. But if you allow your mind to be filled only with distractions, negativity, and shallow entertainment, those things will also shape your identity. The garden does not choose what grows. It simply develops whatever is planted and cared for consistently. Your mind works the same way. This is why self-study is far more than an academic exercise. It is an act of personal design. Every time you choose to learn instead of wasting an hour, you are casting a vote for the person you want to become. You are telling yourself that your future matters more than temporary comfort. You are choosing long-term growth over short-term pleasure. The remarkable thing about personal growth is that it rarely announces itself. You won't wake up tomorrow feeling completely transformed because you read one chapter of a book today. Growth is usually invisible while it is happening. Just as a tree grows quietly beneath the surface before anyone notices its height, your mind develops gradually through consistent learning. One day, you suddenly realize that you react differently to challenges. You speak with greater confidence. You make wiser decisions. You remain calm in situations that once overwhelmed you. Others may call it maturity, but in reality, it is the result of hundreds of small moments spent investing in yourself. Many people underestimate the power of small improvements because they expect dramatic results overnight. They want instant confidence, instant success, and instant wisdom. But the greatest transformations happen slowly. Imagine improving your understanding by just 1% every day. 1% sounds insignificant. It feels almost too small to matter, yet over time, those tiny improvements compound into extraordinary growth. The person who keeps learning every day eventually sees the world through a completely different lens than the person who stopped growing years ago. Your daily learning also influences the quality of your decisions. Every decision you make is based on what you know and how you interpret the situation. When your knowledge expands, your perspective expands. Problems that once seemed impossible begin to look manageable. Opportunities that others overlook become obvious to you. The difference is not that the world changed. The difference is that you changed. This is one of the greatest advantages of self-study. It equips you to respond rather than react. Instead of allowing emotions to control every decision, you develop the ability to pause, think critically, and choose wisely. Knowledge creates space between an event and your response. In that space, wisdom begins to grow. Another powerful aspect of daily learning is that it strengthens resilience. Every inspiring biography teaches you that successful people faced failure. Every leadership lesson reminds you that setbacks are part of progress. Every psychological insight helps you understand your own emotions more clearly. As your understanding grows, your fear begins to shrink. You stop seeing failure as proof that you are incapable and begin seeing it as feedback that helps you improve. Daily learning also expands your vision. It becomes difficult to dream bigger if your understanding remains small. The more you expose yourself to new ideas, different cultures, innovative solutions, and inspiring stories, the more possibilities you begin to see for your own life. Suddenly, goals that once seemed impossible begin to feel achievable because your perspective has expanded beyond your previous limitations. One of the greatest dangers in life is becoming mentally comfortable. Comfort convinces you that there is nothing more to learn. It whispers that your current knowledge is enough. But history shows that every generation faces new challenges requiring new thinking. The people who remain valuable are not those who cling to yesterday's answers. They are the ones who continue asking today's questions. This is why curiosity is one of the most valuable qualities you can develop. Curiosity keeps your mind alive. It encourages exploration instead of assumption. It replaces certainty with discovery. Every question you ask opens the door to another level of understanding. Every answer becomes the beginning of a deeper conversation rather than the end of learning. Remember that your future self is being shaped by today's habits. The person you become next year is not determined by one extraordinary event. It is determined by the ordinary choices you repeat every single day. Every page you read, every meaningful podcast you listen to, every thoughtful conversation you have, every journal entry you write, and every lesson you apply is quietly building a stronger version of you. When people eventually admire your confidence, your wisdom, or your leadership, they will only see the results. They will not see the early mornings spent reading, the evenings spent reflecting, or the countless moments when you chose learning instead of distraction. They will see the fruit but not the roots, yet you will know the truth. Your identity was not created by chance. It was shaped intentionally through daily study, daily reflection, and a daily commitment to becoming a better version of yourself. That is the true power of learning every day. It does not simply add knowledge to your mind, it transforms the person you are becoming, one lesson, one decision, and one day at a time. In a world overflowing with information, it has become surprisingly easy to confuse consuming knowledge with understanding it. We read articles, listen to podcasts, watch educational videos, and fill notebooks with inspiring quotes. We often finish a book feeling accomplished simply because we reach the last page. But knowledge alone does not create growth. The true value of learning is not measured by how much information you collect. It is measured by how deeply that information changes the way you think, the way you act, and ultimately, the way you live. This is why reflection is one of the most overlooked yet powerful parts of self-study. Reflection transforms information into wisdom. It forces you to slow down in a fast, moving world. Instead of rushing to the next lesson, you pause and ask yourself meaningful questions. What did I just learn? Why does it matter? How does it challenge my current beliefs? What changes should I make because of it? Those simple questions separate lifelong learners from people who merely consume content. Think about how often people read an inspiring book only to return to the exact same habits a week later. The words were powerful. The ideas were brilliant, but nothing changed because there was no reflection. Information entered the mind but never reached the heart. It remained something interesting rather than something transformational. Reflection bridges that gap. It allows ideas to move from memory into character. Imagine looking into a mirror every morning. The mirror shows you exactly what needs attention. It does not criticize you. It simply reflects reality. Reflection works the same way for your mind. It reveals patterns you might otherwise ignore. It helps you recognize strengths you should develop further, and weaknesses you need to address honestly. Without reflection, it is easy to believe you are growing simply because you are busy learning. With reflection, you begin measuring growth by the changes you see in your daily life. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that more information automatically leads to more wisdom. It does not. In fact, too much information without reflection can create confusion. You hear one expert recommend one strategy, another expert suggests something different, and before long, your mind becomes crowded with ideas but empty of clarity. Reflection helps organize what you have learned. It allows you to identify what aligns with your values, your goals, and your purpose instead of trying to follow every new trend that appears. This process also develops independent thinking. Instead of accepting every idea simply because it sounds impressive, you begin examining it carefully. You ask whether it is true. You compare it with your experiences. You test it through action. You discover what works in real life instead of blindly following opinions. This ability to think critically is one of the greatest advantages of consistent self-study. Reflection also teaches humility. The more honestly you evaluate yourself, the more aware you become of how much there is still to learn. This awareness is not a weakness, it is a strength. It keeps your mind open. It prevents pride from convincing you that you have already reached your potential. The wisest people are often the ones who ask the most questions because they understand that growth never truly ends. Another remarkable benefit of reflection is emotional intelligence. Life is not only about solving external problems. It is also about understanding your internal world. Every experience teaches something, if you are willing to examine it. A difficult conversation can teach patience. A failure can teach resilience. A disappointment can reveal unrealistic expectations. A success can remind you of the value of discipline. Reflection helps you uncover these lessons instead of allowing experiences to pass by without meaning. Many people repeat the same mistakes year after year, not because they lack intelligence, but because they never stop long enough to understand why those mistakes keep happening. Reflection interrupts that cycle. It encourages you to examine your decisions instead of simply reacting to outcomes. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you begin asking, "What can this teach me?" That single shift transforms setbacks into opportunities for growth. Journaling is one practical way to strengthen reflection. Writing down your thoughts forces you to organize them clearly. It helps you recognize recurring patterns in your thinking and behavior. Over time, you begin to notice progress that would otherwise go unnoticed. You can look back months later and see how your perspective has matured. What once felt like an impossible challenge may now seem like an important lesson that prepared you for something greater. Reflection also strengthens your ability to make wise decisions. Every decision is influenced by previous experiences. If you never examine those experiences, you are likely to repeat the same reactions automatically. But when you reflect, you become more intentional. You pause before acting. You think before speaking. You choose responses that align with your values rather than reacting based on emotion alone. This kind of thoughtful decision-making becomes a powerful advantage in both personal and professional life. It is important to remember that learning is not a competition. The goal is not to read the most books or complete the most courses. The goal is to become a better human being. One deeply understood lesson can change your life more than 100 forgotten chapters. One meaningful insight, fully applied, can transform your relationships, your leadership, and your future. Growth happens when knowledge becomes action. If a lesson teaches the importance of kindness, then kindness should become more visible in your daily interactions. If a book emphasizes discipline, then your schedule should begin reflecting greater consistency. If you learn about courage, then your decisions should become bolder. Reflection creates this connection between learning and living. It reminds you that education is not complete until it influences behavior. Every evening offers an opportunity to become wiser than you were that morning. Before the day ends, ask yourself what life tried to teach you. Consider your victories, your mistakes, your conversations, and your challenges. Search for the lesson hidden inside each experience. Over time, these moments of quiet reflection will shape your character more than any single book or seminar ever could. The purpose of self-study has never been to collect facts. Its purpose is to transform lives. Reflection is the bridge that carries knowledge from your mind into your actions, from your actions into your habits, and from your habits into the person you are becoming. When you make reflection a daily practice, every lesson gains deeper meaning, every experience becomes a teacher, and every day becomes another step toward becoming the best version of yourself. Motivation is powerful, but it is also temporary. It can inspire you to begin, but it cannot guarantee that you will continue. There will be mornings when you wake up excited to learn something new, eager to improve yourself, and ready to take on every challenge. But there will also be days when you feel tired, distracted, discouraged, or simply uninterested. If your growth depends entirely on how motivated you feel, your progress will always be inconsistent. This is why discipline is far more valuable than motivation. Motivation starts the journey. Discipline ensures that the journey never stops. Think about the people who achieve extraordinary success. From the outside, it may seem as though they are constantly inspired, always energetic, and endlessly driven. The truth is much different. They experience doubt, fatigue, disappointment, and frustration just like everyone else. The difference is not that they always feel motivated. The difference is that they have built habits that continue working even when motivation disappears. They understand that success is not determined by occasional moments of excitement, but by consistent actions repeated over time. Imagine two students who both want to become experts in their field. The first studies only when they feel inspired. Some weeks they read for hours, while other weeks they do nothing because their enthusiasm fades. The second student commits to studying 20 or 30 minutes every single day, regardless of mood. At first, the difference between them is almost impossible to notice. But after months and years, the second student possesses a depth of knowledge, confidence, and experience that the first cannot match. The reason is simple. Consistency always outperforms intensity when intensity is temporary. Discipline removes the need to negotiate with yourself every day. Instead of asking, "Do I feel like learning today?" disciplined people ask a different question, "What is my commitment?" That small shift changes everything. Feelings become temporary visitors rather than permanent decision makers. Your schedule begins to reflect your priorities instead of your emotions. Learning becomes part of your identity, not just an activity you perform when conditions are perfect. Many people wait for the perfect mood before opening a book, listening to an educational podcast, or practicing a new skill. But perfect moods rarely arrive on schedule. Life becomes busy. Unexpected problems appear. Energy rises and falls. If you only learn when everything feels easy, you will miss countless opportunities to grow. Discipline teaches you that progress does not require perfect circumstances. It only requires consistent effort. There is something remarkable about showing up every day. Even when the session feels unproductive, you are reinforcing an important message to yourself. I am someone who keeps my promises. Every time you honor your commitment to self-study, your confidence grows. Not because you mastered everything in one day, but because you proved that you can rely on yourself. Self-trust is built one commitment at a time. Discipline also creates momentum. Think about pushing a heavy object. The first movement requires the greatest effort, but once it begins rolling, keeping it moving becomes much easier. Learning works the same way. Starting is often the hardest part. Yet once studying becomes part of your daily rhythm, it requires far less mental energy. Your brain begins expecting that time for growth. What once felt difficult gradually becomes natural. Another benefit of discipline is that it protects you from emotional decision making. There will be days when you believe your efforts are producing no visible results. You may feel tempted to quit because progress seems slow. Discipline reminds you that meaningful growth is often invisible before it becomes obvious. A tree spends years strengthening its roots before reaching impressive heights. Likewise, your knowledge, character, and wisdom are developing beneath the surface long before others notice the difference. This is especially important because the greatest rewards in life often belong to those who continue when results cannot yet be seen. Every page you read, every lesson you practice, and every skill you develop is preparing you for opportunities that have not yet arrived. If you stop simply because progress feels slow, you may walk away just before your preparation begins producing visible success. Discipline also teaches patience. In a world obsessed with instant results, daily self-study reminds you that real mastery takes time. You cannot rush wisdom. You cannot accelerate experience. Every meaningful skill is built through repetition, correction, and persistence. Accepting this truth removes unnecessary pressure. Instead of demanding immediate perfection, you begin appreciating steady improvement. Small daily efforts possess extraordinary power because they accumulate quietly. Reading 10 pages every day may not seem impressive. Studying one new concept each morning may feel insignificant. Reflecting for 15 minutes each evening may appear too simple to matter. Yet those small actions, repeated hundreds of times, create a level of understanding that cannot be achieved through occasional bursts of effort. Great accomplishments are rarely the result of one extraordinary day. They are usually the result of many ordinary days lived with extraordinary consistency. Discipline is also a form of respect for your future self. Every time you choose learning over distraction, you are investing in a person you have not yet become. You are preparing for conversations you have not yet had, challenges you have not yet faced, and opportunities you cannot yet see. Your future success is being built by today's quiet decisions. There will always be reasons to postpone learning. There will always be excuses that sound convincing. You may believe you are too busy, too tired, or too overwhelmed. But remember that even a small step forward is still progress. 20 focused minutes of intentional learning can accomplish far more than hours of distracted activity. The goal is not perfection. The goal is consistency. When discipline becomes stronger than motivation, your life begins to change in profound ways. You stop depending on temporary emotions and start relying on lasting habits. Your confidence grows because you know you can trust yourself. Your knowledge expands because you continue learning when others stop. Your character strengthens because every disciplined action reinforces the identity of someone committed to growth. In the end, success is not reserved for those who feel inspired every day. It belongs to those who choose to keep learning, keep improving, and keep moving forward long after inspiration has faded. Discipline becomes the bridge between your current potential and your future reality. Every day you honor your commitment to self-study, you take another step across that bridge, becoming wiser, stronger, and more capable than you were the day before.